After the battle near the nebula of veiled echoes, the human ship lay broken among the rings of gas and ice. Smoke curled from its hull, and silence filled the corridors where voices once shouted orders. Only one man remained alive. His name was Daniel Cross. He was a private in the Earth Defense Corps, young and tired with eyes that had seen too much too soon. He floated in the dark, waiting for death or rescue. He did not expect either. Instead, something else came. Ships unlike any human design slid through the debris. They were long and smooth, made of a material that shimmered like frozen light. No weapons fired. No demands were broadcast. They simply surrounded his wreck and pulled it gently into their hold. Daniel blacked out from lack of oxygen before he could understand what was happening. When he woke, he was on a world he could not name. The air was cool and smelled faintly of rain and stone. The sky above was not blue or black, but deep violet streaked with slow-moving ribbons of silver light. Towers rose around him, tall and slender, built from crystal that sang softly in the wind. He lay on a platform of smooth stone, wrists bound not with rope or metal, but with glowing threads that pulsed like living veins. Guards stood nearby. They were tall, slender beings with skin like pale bark and eyes that held the calm of ancient forests. They wore flowing robes that shifted color with their mood, blue for peace, red for anger, silver for judgment. They did not speak to him. They only watched. Daniel tried to move, but the threads tightened gently, not painfully, just enough to remind him he was not free. His uniform was torn, his face bruised, but he was clean. Someone had washed the blood and grime from his skin. That small kindness confused him more than the silence. Hours passed, or maybe days. Time felt strange here. The light never changed much, and his body ached in ways that made him lose track of moments. Finally, a new figure approached. She walked with quiet grace, barefoot on the stone, her steps making no sound. Her hair was white as starlight, falling past her waist in soft waves. Her eyes were silver, deep and unreadable, yet they held something human, curiosity perhaps, or sorrow. She stopped before him and studied his face. Then she spoke, her voice low and clear like water over glass. "You are Daniel Cross," she said. "Human, soldier, survivor." He nodded, throat dry. "Who are you?" "I am Lyra," she replied. "Mystic of the Seventh Spire. Voice of the Tribunal." "Tribunal?" he asked, fear creeping into his chest. "Am I on trial?" "You already have been," she said. "The verdict was given while you slept." His heart pounded. What was the verdict? "Death is the usual sentence for trespass in sacred space," she said, "especially when fire follows your path. Your ship crossed the Veil of Echoes. That place is not for outsiders. It is where we lay our dead to return to the stars. Your battle spilled into it. Many of our kin were lost." Daniel swallowed. "I didn't know. We were running. The enemy was behind us. We had nowhere else to go." "Ignorance does not erase consequence," Lyra said, "but it can shape mercy." She turned and gestured. The threads around his wrists loosened and faded into mist. He sat up slowly, rubbing his arms. Around him, the crystal towers hummed. Far below, strange birds with wings of light circled the spires. "What happens now?" he asked. "You will face the full tribunal," she said. "Not for judgment, but for sentence. The verdict is already set. Only the form of your punishment remains to be chosen." He followed her through winding paths of living stone. Bridges of light connected the towers, and beings like Lyra moved silently, some carrying glowing orbs, others reading from floating scrolls. No one spoke to him. No one even looked at him directly. It was as if he were a ghost already forgotten. They entered a great chamber at the heart of the tallest spire. The floor was a pool of still water that reflected the ceiling, a dome of stars that moved slowly as if alive. Around the edges sat 12 figures, robed and veiled, their faces hidden, their presence pressed against Daniel's mind like a weight. He felt small, exposed like an insect under glass. Lyra stood beside him but did not speak. The silence stretched until it hurt his ears. Then, a voice echoed, not from one place but from all around. "Daniel Cross of Earth," the voice said. "You entered the Veil of Echoes uninvited. You brought war into our sanctuary. For this, your life is forfeit." Daniel's breath caught. He wanted to argue, to explain again, but he knew it would not matter. These beings did not think like humans. Their laws were older than cities, older than nations. Yet, the voice continued. The stars whispered a different path. Your kind is young. Your fire is reckless but not without heart. And so we offer you a choice. A choice, Daniel asked, surprised. Not truly, the voice said, But the form of your end may be shaped by ancient rite. They spoke of the Thalvareth, a ritual so old that even the Silthari rarely used it. It was a binding not of body but of soul. A human and a Silthari woman would be joined in a bond deeper than blood. If the bond held, the human would live but never return to his people. If it failed, both would perish, their souls unraveling into the void. Daniel stared. You want me to marry one of you, not marry? Lyra said softly. Bond. It is not about love. It is about balance. Your chaos and our stillness. Your fire and our silence. If they can coexist, you both survive. If not, you both fade. Who would agree to that, he asked. Before Lyra could answer, a murmur rose among the tribunal. One of the veiled figures stood. Not an elder. Not a warrior. Just a woman, tall and calm, with silver eyes that met Daniel's without fear. I will, she said. Daniel blinked. It was Lyra. You, she asked, stunned. The tribunal fell silent. Even the stars above seemed to pause. Why Lyra? One of the elders asked, voice sharp. Because, she said, I have seen his dreams in the water. He did not choose war. He ran from it. And still he carried his wounded. He gave his last oxygen to a dying friend. That is not the heart of a destroyer. That is the heart of someone who could learn. The elders conferred in whispers that sounded like wind through leaves. Finally, the main voice spoke again. So it shall be. Lyra of the seventh spire will undergo the rite of Thalvareth with Daniel Cross of Earth. Let the stars bear witness. Daniel wanted to protest. He barely knew her. He did not understand their ways. But something in her gaze stopped him. It was not pity. It was challenge. As if she were saying, prove me right. They led him to a smaller chamber open to the sky. In the center stood a ring of standing stones, each carved with symbols that glowed faintly. The air smelled of ozone and something sweet, like crushed petals. Lyra stood in the middle, barefoot, wearing a simple robe of white. She held out her hand. This will hurt, she said, but do not pull away. If you do, the bond breaks and we both die. He took her hand. Her skin was cool, but her pulse beat strong against his palm. The ritual began with song. Voices rose from the towers, wordless and haunting. Light poured from the stones, wrapping around them like threads. Daniel gasped as warmth spread up his arm, then through his chest. It felt like fire and ice at once. Memories flashed. His childhood home, his first day in uniform, the face of his friend as he handed him the last oxygen mask. And then he saw her memories too. A forest of crystal trees, a dragon with eyes like molten gold, a loneliness so deep it echoed. He cried out, but Lyra held tight. Do not fight it, she whispered. Let it in. The pain peaked, then faded into a strange calm. The light dimmed. The song ended. They stood, breathing hard, still holding hands. It is done, Lyra said. Daniel looked at her. Really looked. And for the first time, he did not see an alien. He saw a person. Tired. Brave. Afraid, but not showing it. What now, he asked. Now, she said. We wait. The bond must settle. If it holds, we live. If not, she did not finish. She did not need to. Outside, the violet sky darkened. Somewhere in the distance, a low rumble echoed, deep, ancient, and full of warning. Lyra's eyes widened slightly. Not fear, recognition. He followed her gaze. What was that, my dragon? She said softly. He knows, and he will not be pleased. Daniel had heard stories of dragons, myths, fairy tales. But the sound that came again, louder this time, was no myth. It was real. And it was angry. Lyra turned to him, her expression unreadable. You have survived judgment, Daniel Cross. But the real trial has only just begun. The bond settled like a second heartbeat inside Daniel's chest. It was quiet now. No longer burning or tearing, but a steady hum beneath his skin. He could feel Lyra's presence like a soft echo in his mind. Not words, but feelings, calm, worry, resolve. It was strange, like sharing a room with someone who never spoke but whose moods filled the air. They were given a small dwelling near the edge of the Spire City, built into the side of a cliff where the wind carried songs from the lower valleys. It was simple, smooth walls, a single window that looked out over the rings of the gas giant below, and a floor that warmed underfoot. No doors, no locks, freedom but not trust. For 2 days they spoke little. Lyra moved through the space like a shadow, tending to small tasks, lighting the crystal lamps, arranging herbs in glass bowls, watching the sky. Daniel tried to rest, but sleep brought dreams that were not his own. Forests of glowing trees, a sky full of twin moons, and always, the eyes of something vast and ancient watching from the dark. On the third morning, the ground shook. Not a quake, not an explosion. A deep rhythmic thud that rolled through the stone like a drumbeat. Then came the roar. A sound so low it vibrated in Daniel's bones, so powerful it made the crystal walls hum in reply. Lyra froze, her hands clenched around the edge of the table. Her silver eyes went wide, not with fear but with something heavier. Dread. "He is awake," she said. "Who?" Daniel asked, though he already knew. "Kylan." Before she could say more, a shadow passed over the sun. Daniel ran to the window. Above the city, wings blotted out the violet sky. They were massive, leathery, and veined with gold, each beat sending gusts of wind that bent the spires. The creature circling above was no myth. It was real. Scales like polished obsidian, horns curling back from its skull, eyes that burned with molten light. A dragon, and it was furious. It dove not at the city, not at the towers, straight for their dwelling. Lyra shouted something in her own tongue, a sharp musical word, and threw herself in front of Daniel. The dragon struck the cliffside just below their window, claws tearing into the stone. Rock shattered. Dust filled the air. The beast reared up, wings spread wide and fixed its gaze on them. Its eyes locked onto Daniel. In that moment, he felt it, not through the bond with Lyra, but something deeper, older, hatred, suspicion, a warning. This creature saw him as an invader, a stain. "Stay behind me," Lyra ordered, voice tight. But Daniel could not move. He stood frozen, not from fear, but from awe. The dragon was terrifying, yes, but also beautiful. Ancient. Powerful in a way humans could never be. "Kylan," Lyra said, stepping forward onto the broken ledge. "Enough," the dragon snarled, smoke curling from its nostrils. It lowered its head, eyes never leaving Daniel. Then it spoke. Not with a voice, but in Daniel's mind, clear and cold as winter. "You do not belong here, human. You have touched what is mine." Daniel staggered back. The words were not in English, yet he understood them perfectly. The bond with Lyra had opened a door, and now the dragon was walking through it. "He is bound to me now," Lyra said, her thoughts sharp, directed at the dragon. "By law, by starlight, by choice." "Your choice," Kylan replied, voice dripping with scorn. "Not mine, not the old ways. The bond is broken if the heart does not agree." "Then test it," Lyra said, turning to Daniel. "Look at him, Kylan. Truly look." The dragon's eyes narrowed. Daniel felt a pressure in his skull, like fingers probing his thoughts. Memories flashed, his childhood dog dying in his arms, his first kiss under a street lamp the moment he gave his oxygen mask to his friend in the wrecked ship. Moments of pain, of kindness, of fear. The pressure stopped. Kylan let out a low growl, but it was quieter now. Confused. "He is not like the others," the dragon admitted grudgingly, "but that does not make him worthy." Before Lyra could respond, a group of Silthari guards appeared on the path below, weapons raised, long staves tipped with glowing crystals. They had come to protect the city, not the human. "Remove him," one called up. "The dragon is enraged. The human must go." "He stays," Lyra said, voice ringing with authority. "By tribunal decree." The guards hesitated. The law was clear, but the dragon's anger was older than law. Kylan suddenly spread his wings and let out a deafening roar. The guards dropped to their knees, covering their ears. The dragon did not attack them. He was making a point. This was his domain, his mystic, his bond. Then, without warning, he lunged. Not at Daniel, but past him, knocking him aside with a sweep of his tail. Daniel hit the wall hard, breath knocked out of him. Before he could rise, Kylan's massive head filled the doorway. Jaws opened just enough to show rows of teeth like black daggers. Lyra stepped between them. "No?" The dragon paused. His hot breath washed over her, but she did not flinch. "If you harm him, you break the right," she said. "And if the right breaks, I fade. You know this." Kylan's eyes flickered. For the first time, Daniel saw something other than anger in them. Grief. Loyalty. Love. The dragon pulled back slowly, then turned and leapt from the cliff, wings catching the wind as he soared into the sky. But he did not leave. He circled above, a dark sentinel. "That was too close," Lyra whispered, helping Daniel up. "Are you hurt?" He shook his head, rubbing his side. Just bruised. Why did he do that? Because he is bound to me too, she said. Not by ritual, but by blood and time. Kalen has been with my line for 7 generations. He is more than a pet. He is guardian, judge, family. And he does not trust you? Daniel looked out at the dragon circling above. I don't blame him. Over the next few days, life became a careful dance. Lyra taught Daniel the basics of Silthari ways, how to read the light patterns in the towers, how to drink from the living wells, how to speak simple phrases in her tongue. He learned that the Silthari did not eat as humans did. They absorbed energy from starlight and certain plants. He was given special food, soft fruits and clear broth, that would not poison him. But Kalen watched. Always, sometimes from the cliffs, sometimes from the sky. Once Daniel woke to find the dragon's massive eye peering through the window. Unblinking, he did not move. Neither did the dragon. They stared at each other until dawn. Lyra tried to mediate. She took Daniel to the lower caves where Kalen often rested. The dragon lay coiled in a cavern lit by glowing moss, steam rising from cracks in the floor. He did not move as they approached. Sit, Lyra said. Daniel sat on a smooth stone, heart pounding. Kalen opened one eye. You are small, the dragon said in his mind. Fragile. Why should I protect you? Because I am bound to Lyra, Daniel replied, thinking the words hard, hoping they would carry. And because I do not want to be your enemy. Kalen snorted, a puff of smoke curling from his nostrils. Words are easy, actions are truth. Then test me, Daniel said. The dragon considered him. Then with a slow movement, he lifted one massive claw and pointed to a deep crack in the cavern wall. Beyond it, darkness, danger. Go, Kalen said. Bring back what lies at the end. Lyra started to protest, but the dragon cut her off with a rumble. If he is worthy, he will return. If not, the bond was false anyway. Daniel stood. He had no weapon, no light. But he walked into the tunnel. The air grew colder. The walls dripped with moisture. Strange insects with glowing wings flitted past. He kept going, guided only by instinct and the faint hum of the bond with Lyra in his chest. Deep inside, he found it. A single crystal, pulsing with soft blue light, resting on a pedestal of black stone. As he reached for it, the ground trembled. Stones fell from the ceiling. The tunnel began to collapse. He ran, clutching the crystal, dust choking him. He burst out just as the entrance sealed behind him with a crash. Kalen watched, unmoving. Daniel held out the crystal, breathing hard. The dragon took it gently in his jaws, then placed it at Lyra's feet. He did not speak, but he bowed his head slightly to Daniel. That night, for the first time, Kalen did not circle above. He lay on the cliff below their dwelling, wings folded, eyes closed. But Daniel knew he was not sleeping. He was listening. The bond between Daniel and Lyra grew stronger. They shared more than thoughts now. They shared silence, comfort, a kind of peace. But Daniel could still feel the dragon's presence like a third voice, watching, waiting. One evening, as they sat by the window watching the rings turn gold in the sunset, Lyra spoke softly. Kalen has accepted you, she said. Not fully, but enough. How can you tell? Because he let you live, she said. And because he showed you the trial, only those he considers possible allies are tested. The rest he burns without warning. Daniel looked down at the dragon sleeping below. I still don't understand why he matters so much. Lyra smiled faintly. You think of dragons as beasts. We do not. Kalen is a keeper of memory. He remembers when our people first walked these spires. He remembers wars you cannot imagine. And he knows when the balance is broken. And now, she said, the balance is changing. Because of you. Before Daniel could ask what she meant, the ground trembled again. But this time it was different. Not from Kalen. Deeper. Older. The lights in the towers flickered. The singing crystals fell silent. Lyra stood, face pale. Something is wrong. Kalen rose instantly, wings flaring, eyes scanning the horizon. Then he let out a low, warning growl. Not from outside, Daniel said, feeling it in his bones. From below. From the deep places, Lyra whispered. The places even we do not go. Kalen turned to Daniel, then to Lyra. His thoughts came clear and urgent. The veil is thinning. They are waking. Who? Daniel asked. The ones who eat memory, Kalen replied. The hollow ones, Lyra's. The tremors grew stronger each day. They were not like earthquakes. They felt like something breathing deep beneath the world. The Scifi city grew quiet. The singing crystals fell silent. Even the light in the towers dimmed as if afraid. Daniel felt it too, not just in the ground but in the bond. Lyra's thoughts were clouded with fear she tried to hide, and Kalen, who now slept closer to their dwelling, kept his eyes open through the night, scanning the horizon with attention Daniel had not seen before. One morning, Lyra woke with blood on her pillow, not from a wound but from her nose. Her silver eyes were dull. "What happened?" Daniel asked, helping her sit up. "I dreamed," she said, voice weak. "But it was not my dream. It was theirs." "Who's the hollow ones?" "The Voidwalkers. They do not dream. They steal dreams. And last night they reached for me." Kalen landed heavily on the ledge outside, wings folding with a soft thud. He lowered his head to the window. "She is fading," the dragon said in Daniel's mind. "The veil is thinning. They are pulling at her from the other side." Daniel looked at Lyra. Her skin, once like moonlit bark, now looked gray. Tired. "We have to do something," he said. "The elders will not listen," Lyra whispered. "They say it is just echoes. Old fears. They think the Voidwalkers are gone forever. But you know better. I have seen the signs. The lights in the deep wells are dying. The memory stones are turning black. And last night, 3 Scifi woke with no memory of their names." Daniel remembered his training. When command ignored intel, you found proof. Hard proof. "Where can we find answers?" he asked. Lyra looked at him, then at Kalen. The dragon nodded slowly. "The sealed archives," she said, "beneath the Heartspire. No one has entered in 500 years, not since the last war." "Why not? Because the path is guarded," Kalen said, "and what lies inside is dangerous, not just to body but to mind." "Then we go at night," Daniel said, "before anyone notices." They waited until the twin moons rose. The city slept, or tried to. Daniel wore dark robes Lyra gave him. Kalen flew low, hugging the cliffs so his shadow would not be seen. They landed near the base of the Heartspire, where the ground sloped into a wide stone mouth, the entrance to the archives. The door was sealed with a lock of living crystal. It pulsed faintly, but the light was weak. Lyra placed her hand on it. The crystal recognized her bloodline. After a moment, it cracked open with a sigh. Inside, the air was cold and still. Walls lined with shelves held thousands of memory stones, smooth orbs that glowed when touched. But most were dark now. Dead. Daniel picked one up. As his fingers brushed it, an image flashed in his mind. A Scifi city burning, not with fire, but with silence. People walking, then stopping, then vanishing as if they were never there. He dropped it, shaken. "That was the last war," Lyra said softly. "The Voidwalkers do not kill with weapons. They erase. First your name, then your face, then your soul, until no one remembers you existed." "How do you fight something like that with memory?" Kalen said, stepping deeper into the chamber. "With bonds that cannot be broken." They moved through the archives, searching. Finally, in a hidden alcove behind a fallen shelf, Lyra found a scroll made of woven light. It unrolled in her hands, showing images of 3 figures standing together, a Scifi woman, a human man, and a dragon, surrounded by a ring of fire that held back a sea of darkness. "The Triad," Lyra breathed. "It is real," Daniel stared. "There was a human in the old wherries," she said. "Long ago, when the Voidwalkers first came, a human ship was lost near our world. One man survived. He bonded with a mystic and with her dragon. Together they pushed the Hollow Ones back. Not with weapons, with unity. With a bond so strong it became a shield." "So the tribunal knew," Daniel said. "They knew this would happen." "They hoped," Lyra corrected. "They saw a chance in you, not because you are strong, but because you chose to save others when you could have saved yourself. That is the heart the Triad needs." Suddenly, the lights in the archive flickered. The memory stones on the shelves began to crack. A cold wind blew from nowhere, carrying whispers that made no sound but filled the mind with dread. "They are here," Kalen growled, smoke rising from his jaws. The walls seemed to bend. Shadows pooled on the floor, not from any light, but from absence. Daniel felt a pull in his chest, not from Lyra, but from something empty. It wanted to take the bond, to unravel it. "Hold on," Lyra said, gripping his hand. "Do not let them in." Daniel focused on her presence, the warmth, the strength, the quiet courage. He thought of Kalen's loyalty, the dragon's ancient fire. He held both in his mind like a shield. The shadows retreated, hissing. "But they will be back," Kalen said. "Stronger." "We need to warn the elders," Daniel said. Lyra shook her head. "They will not believe a human and a mystic who broke the silence. We need proof they cannot ignore." "Then we give them a sign," Daniel said. The next day, Daniel asked to speak before the tribunal. The elders were reluctant, but the law allowed it. He stood in the star chamber, Lyra beside him. Kalen perched on the ledge outside, visible to all. "I have seen the Void Walkers," Daniel said, voice clear. "They are not gone. They are returning. And if we do not act, your world will be forgotten." Laughter rippled through the elders. "A human speaks of our oldest fears as if he understands them." "I do not understand them," Daniel said, "but I have felt them, and so has Lyra, and so has Kalen." One elder stood. "Prove it." Daniel turned to Lyra. She nodded. Together they reached for the bond, and through it they called to Kalen. The dragon leapt into the chamber, wings spread, filling the space with his presence. The elders gasped, some rising in fear. But Kalen did not attack. He lowered his head and opened his mouth. From his throat he released a single flame, not red or orange, but pure white. It hovered in the air, then shaped itself into an image, the memory stone vision, the burning city, the vanishing people, the triad standing firm. The flame showed more, the Voidwalkers as they were now, drifting beyond the outer rings, their ships like holes in space, pulling light into nothing. Silence filled the chamber. The elder who had laughed looked pale. That memory, it was sealed. "No one alive has seen it," Kalen remembers, Lyra said. "And now, so do you." The tribunal conferred in hushed tones. Finally, the main voice spoke. "What do you ask of us, team?" Daniel said. "And trust. Let us prepare the triad. If we are wrong, you lose nothing. If we are right, you save everything." The elders looked at each other, then at the dragon, then at the human who stood beside their mystic, not as a prisoner, but as a partner. "So be it," the voice said. "But know this, if you fail, the blame will be yours alone." That night they gathered what they needed. Lyra brought memory stones that still held light. Kalen carried ancient relics from his hoard. Crystals that focused thought, rings that strengthened bonds. Daniel used his knowledge of tactics to plan their stand. They would not wait for the Voidwalkers to reach the city. They would meet them at the sky bridge of Elthar, the narrow path of light that connected the inner and outer rings. It was the weakest point, but also the strongest, because it was built on memory. As they prepared, Daniel felt the bond deepen, not just with Lyra, but with Kalen too. The dragon's thoughts were no longer sharp and guarded. They were steady. Certain. "You are not what I expected," Kalen admitted one evening as they watched the stars. "Neither are you," Daniel replied. The dragon rumbled, almost a laugh. "Humans are loud, messy, but you listen." Daniel smiled. "I had a good teacher." The night before the battle, Lyra took Daniel to the edge of the cliff. Below, the gas giant swirled in colors of gold and violet. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "Yes," he said, "but not of dying, of failing you." "Failing him?" "You will not," she said, "because you do not fight for glory. You fight for us." Kalen landed beside them, warm and solid. The three of them stood together, looking at the stars. For the first time, Daniel did not feel like an outsider. He felt like he belonged, and far beyond the rings. In the silent dark, the hollow ones drifted closer, hungry and empty, ready to forget them all. The sky bridge of Elthar stretched across the void like a thread of light. It was not made of stone or metal, but of solidified memory, woven from the thoughts of every Silthari who had ever crossed it. To walk on it was to feel the weight of centuries beneath your feet, and now it would be their battlefield. Daniel stood at the center, Lyra on his left. Kalen coiled behind them like a living wall. The wind howled around them, cold and sharp, carrying whispers that were not sound but absence. The Voidwalkers were coming. Their ships appeared first, dark shapes that did not reflect light but swallowed it. They drifted silently through the rings, leaving trails of nothingness in their wake. No engines, no signals, just emptiness moving with purpose. The Silthari army waited on the far side of the bridge, armed with staves and shields of crystal. They would hold the city. Daniel, Lyra, and Kalen would hold the line. "They do not understand," Lyra said softly. "They think this is a war of weapons." "It is not," Kalen rumbled. "It is a war of memory, of soul." Daniel tightened his grip on the small crystal Lyra had given him, a focus stone carved with symbols of unity. He had no gun, no armor, only the bond. The first Voidwalker stepped onto the bridge. It was not a creature in the way humans understood. It had no face, no body, just a shifting form of shadow and silence. Where it walked, the light of the bridge dimmed. Memories flickered and died. Daniel felt it reach for him, not with hands, but with hunger. It wanted his name, his past. His bond. He focused on Lyra, on Kaelin, on the warmth between them. The Voidwalker paused. It could not take what was held tightly. Then it lunged. Kaelin roared and unleashed a stream of white fire. It did not burn like normal flame. It burned with memory. Images of ancient forests, of starlit births, of songs sung for 1,000 years. The fire struck the Voidwalker, and for the first time, it screamed, a sound of pure negation. But more came. Dozens. Hundreds. They flowed onto the bridge like a tide of nothing. The Silthari fired their staves, beams of light slicing through the dark. But the Voidwalkers absorbed the energy, growing stronger. Weapons meant nothing here. Daniel knew then what they had to do. The truth, Alvareth, he said. Now. Lyra nodded. Kaelin lowered his head. They formed a triangle on the bridge, Daniel in front, Lyra behind him, Kaelin circling them both. Lyra began to chant in the old tongue, words that vibrated in the air like living things. Kaelin added his voice, a deep, resonant hum that shook the stars. Daniel closed his eyes and opened the bond fully, not just sharing thoughts now, merging. He felt Lyra's centuries of solitude, her quiet strength, her love for her people. He felt Kaelin's ancient rage, his loyalty, his fire that had burned since the world was young. And they felt him. His fear, his hope, his stubborn human will to protect what mattered. The three became one. Light erupted from them. Not white, not gold, but a color that had no name. It pulsed outward, washing over the bridge. Where it touched, the Voidwalkers recoiled, not because it hurt them, but because it remembered them, and to be remembered was their weakness. The Hollow Ones fed on forgetting, but the Triad was pure memory, shared, protected, unbroken. Daniel opened his eyes. He was no longer just Daniel. He was Lyra's calm, Kaelin's fire, human courage, Silthari wisdom, dragon strength. He stepped forward. The Voidwalkers hesitated. Then they attacked as one. Daniel did not fight with fists or fire. He fought with truth. He showed them the face of the Silthari child who would never be born if they won. He showed them the human soldier who gave his last breath for a friend. He showed them Kaelin's first flight under twin moons. He showed them love, loss, laughter, all the things they had erased. The Voidwalkers shuddered. Their forms flickered. For the first time they felt something. Doubt. Kaelin roared again, and this time the fire was brighter. Lyra raised her hands, and the bridge itself answered, glowing with the strength of every soul who had ever crossed it. Together, they pushed. The tide of darkness broke. The Voidwalkers did not die. They could not. But they unraveled, their forms dissolving into wisps of shadow that scattered into the void. Unable to hold together in the face of such unity, silence returned to the bridge. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping. The bond was still there, but the merging faded. He was himself again. Tired, bruised, alive. Lyra knelt beside him, hand on his back. You did it. We did it, he corrected. Kaelin landed heavily, smoke curling from his jaws, but his eyes were calm. The Hollow Ones will not return soon. The Triad has marked this place. On the far side, the Silthari army stood in stunned silence. Then one by one they bowed, not to Lyra, not to the dragon, but to Daniel. The elders approached slowly. Their robes, once red with judgment, now shimmered silver with awe. You have saved us, the lead elder said, not with force, but with bond. The old stories were true. Daniel looked at Lyra, then at Kaelin. I could not have done it alone. That is the point, Lyra said softly. They returned to the city as the twin moons rose. The lights in the towers burned brighter than ever. The crystals sang again. And for the first time in centuries, the Silthari celebrated, not with silence but with music. But Daniel felt a change in himself. The bond was deeper now, permanent. He could no longer tell where he ended and they began. and he did not want to. That night, as they sat on the cliff edge, Kalen resting his head on his claws, Lyra spoke. The tribunal will offer you a choice soon. What choice to stay or to return to your people? They will say, you have done enough, that you may go home. Daniel looked at the stars. Home was a memory now. Earth felt distant, like a dream half forgotten. And if I stay, then you are one of us, she said, not by law but by truth. Kalen opened one eye. You are pack human. You always were. Daniel smiled. Then I stay. But even as he said it, he felt it, a faint tremor in the bond. Not fear. Warning. Far beyond the rings, in the deepest dark, something stirred. Not the Void Walkers. Something older. Something that had watched the battle and remembered the fire of the Triad. The war was not over, but for now they had won, and that was enough. Peace settled over the Silthari world like morning mist. The towers sang again, their light steady and warm. The rings of the gas giant turned gold in the daylight, and the wind carried songs instead of silence. The people moved with lighter steps, their eyes no longer shadowed by fear. The Void Walkers were gone, or at least driven back into the deep dark where they belonged. Daniel walked through the city not as a prisoner, not as a guest, but as something new. The Silthari did not have a word for what he was, neither did he, but they bowed when he passed, not out of duty, but respect. Children peeked from behind crystal pillars, whispering his name like a story. He was the human who stood with the mystic and the dragon, the one who remembered when others forgot. Lyra walked beside him most days. Their bond had changed after the battle on the sky bridge. It was no longer a thread connecting two souls, it was a river deep and constant. They did not need to speak to understand each other. Sometimes they sat for hours on the cliff edge watching the stars, sharing thoughts like breath. Kalen was never far. He no longer circled above like a guard. Now he walked with them, his massive form moving with surprising grace along the stone paths. The Silthari gave him wide space, not out of fear but reverence. He was no longer just Lyra's dragon. He was the guardian of the Triad. One morning the elders sent for Daniel. They met in the star chamber. But this time the mood was different. No veils, no cold judgment. The air was soft, the water below calm and clear. You have given us more than victory, the lead elder said. You have given us hope, and a new way to see the universe. Daniel stood tall. I only did what was needed. Perhaps, the elder said, but need does not always find the willing. You chose to stay, to learn, to fight. That is rare. They offered him a choice, as Lyra had predicted. A ship would be prepared. He could return to Earth, carrying tales of peace and alliance. His people would honor him. His name would be remembered, or he could stay, not as a bonded outsider, but as a true member of their world. He would be given a place in the spire, a voice in their council, a life woven into theirs. Daniel did not hesitate. I stay, he said. The elders nodded as if they had expected nothing else. Then the lead elder stepped forward and placed a small crystal around his neck. It pulsed with a soft blue light, the same color as the focus stone he had carried into battle. This is the mark of the Triad, she said. Wear it and all will know you are one of us. That night there was a gathering, not a formal ceremony but a quiet celebration under the twin moons. Silthari brought glowing fruits and memory blossoms that bloomed only in times of joy. Music filled the air. Flutes made of crystal, drums of stretched light. Even Kalen joined, his deep hum blending with the songs. Daniel sat between Lyra and the dragon, eating strange fruits that tasted like starlight and rain. He laughed at a story one elder told about a young mystic who once tried to ride Kalen and ended up in a lake of liquid silver. The dragon snorted smoke, clearly remembering. For the first time since the war, Daniel felt whole, not human, not Silthari, just himself, accepted. Needed. Loved. After the gathering, he walked with Lyra to their dwelling. Kalen followed, his claws clicking softly on the stone. Do you ever miss Earth? She asked. Sometimes, he admitted. The smell of rain on concrete. The sound of a city at night. My mother's voice. But those are memories now. Not a home. Home is where your bond is rooted, she said. He looked at her, and at Kalen, who lay down outside their window like a living shield. Yes. Days turned into weeks. Daniel learned more of their ways. He helped rebuild the memory wells that had gone dark. He taught the young Silthari simple human games, tag, hide and seek, drawing in the dust. They taught him to read the stars as stories, not just navigation points. He also trained, Not with weapons, but with focus. Lyra showed him how to strengthen the bond, how to send thoughts clearly, how to shield his mind from outside influence. Kaelin taught him silence, the kind that listens to the wind, to the earth, to the space between heartbeats. One evening, as they sat on the cliff, Lyra grew still. "What is it?" Daniel asked. She pointed to the horizon. Beyond the rings, a single point of darkness moved, not drifting, but watching. "It is not the Void Walkers," Kaelin said, joining them. "This is different." Older, Daniel felt it too. A presence, vast and patient, not hostile. Not friendly, just aware. "They saw us fight," Lyra whispered. "And they remembered." "Who are they?" "We do not know," she said. "But the old texts speak of Watchers, beings who live between the galaxies. They do not interfere. They only observe. And remember. So they are not a threat. Not yet," Kaelin rumbled. "But memory can be a weapon. Or a gift." Daniel watched the dark point for a long time. Then he turned to Lyra and placed his hand over hers. "Whatever comes, we face it together." She smiled. "Yes." Life went on. The Silthari began to change. The tribunal was reformed, not as judges, but as guides. New laws were written, ones that valued connection over isolation. Other mystics began to speak of bonds with other species, not as punishment, but as possibility. Daniel became a bridge, not just between human and Silthari, but between old and new. And through it all, Kaelin remained, no longer just a guardian, but a friend. Sometimes Daniel would climb onto his back, and they would fly over the rings, the wind in their faces. The world spread out below like a dream. One night, as they rested under the stars, Lyra spoke softly. "You were sentenced to bond with me, but it was never a punishment." "No," Daniel said. "It was a beginning." Kaelin opened one eye. "And a good one at that." Daniel laughed. The sound carried into the violet sky, joining the songs of the towers, the hum of the planet, the quiet breath of the universe. Far away, in the silent dark, the Watcher turned and moved on. It had seen enough. The triad was strong. The memory was safe, and on the edge of a world made of light and song, a human, a mystic, and a dragon slept, side by side, bound not by law but by choice, by trust, by something deeper than words. They were home.